Good afternoon, everybody. This is a great pleasure to have you all here at a hybrid event. So we have colleagues here in Barcelona present, and then other colleagues online. So I welcome you all on screen and on site. This is a great pleasure really to welcome this event as the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association here based in Barcelona. And then we are organizing or co-organizing this event with the University of Colorado, Denver, under the Brain Capital Alliance. So this is really a great momentum and also a very interesting event that allows us to create or co-create together within this Brain Capital initiative on the power of imagination and creativity. So I ask you all to hold on the journey and trying really to co-create together on this very interesting and innovative initiative that together with Harris and Theo and Pavel and Marion, that she couldn't be with us today, we will try to put it forward. This week has been quite hectic for all of us since last week. In fact, we've been in Paris, in Brussels, and this is the last event of the series of events in Europe to move forward this initiative. So without further ado, since we're already late, I give the floor to Theo. Edmund Theo, he's the co-founder of Imaginator Academy, Associate Dean of the Transdisciplinary Research and Innovation, University of Colorado, Denver. Please, to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'll keep my initial comments brief, but I just want to welcome everyone and say how very exciting it is to see the worlds of neuroscience and economic development, economics, and creativity come together. Today, we hope to have a very generative conversation. This is not a sales pitch event. This is a working event. So what we hope to come out of here with today is a great deal of leveraged information from all of the professionals that are coming to this room today. Everyone here has been specifically invited and curated for different reasons. So we are all coming with different understandings of the work, different language, different backgrounds from science to economics and so forth. And so we are going to do our very best to navigate the language today so everyone can access it in a way that is meaningful to them. If at any point there is jargon or language or abbreviations that start to be used, which is a trained behavior that we're all in because we're all in our day-to-day worlds. Please just kind of, chime in and let folks know that you would like a little deeper understanding of what's being discussed, because we really do want to try to keep everyone in the conversation today. One of the challenges about this kind of work is when you bring a neuroscientist like Harris and an economist like Rem and a creativity scientist like Seta and a cultural futurist like myself to the table. It's going to be a little messy, and we've intended for it to be that way today, because we all spend our days on stage and in leadership roles, making very sure that people don't think we are messy. Today is a day for us to kind of intentionally engage in the humanity and the conversations around this project in a way that is generative and no risk associated with it. So today's the day to ask questions, to engage in the work. And I think that's all. I'll stop there and turn it over to Harris to begin navigating the first part of our agenda today, which is helping everyone to understand the work that's been going on for the last 2 years by a growing group of us around the Brain Capital Alliance. So Harris, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Theo and Rim. Just waiting for my slides to come up, so they're all good. Great. Well, it's wonderful to see everyone here today and everyone online as well. For folks in the US and Colorado, you must make it here. The site is spectacular. I guess it's a UNESCO Heritage listed site, so it's very inspiring. And so today I want to talk about the Brain Capital Alliance, which we're launching, and talk to you about how we got here. I'll be presenting on behalf of the Alliance and then also on behalf of William Hines of the OECD, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. He sends his apologies. So my role here is really to talk about brain capital as a sort of context setter for this discussion. And I am a physician and a neuroscientist by training, so I'm going to do my best to speak in intelligible English. So brain challenges really are a major issue that we think are occurring for civilization, every country and all around the world. On the left-hand side of this slide, you can see clinical challenges that we know are common and increasingly burdensome. We all either have been touched by these or know someone that has been touched by them. It's really an issue that we all face. There's, depression, anxiety, isolation, long COVID, Alzheimer's disease. And then on the right-hand side, we see sort of non-medical brain challenges, fake news susceptibility, radicalization susceptibility from digital media, eco-anxiety. Who doesn't have eco-anxiety with the acceleration of climate issues? And so our thesis with these brain challenges is that there's a confluence of them. They're coming at us from all different directions. They're impacting our brains. And we know that as the world gets more uncertain, as technology accelerates, as climate accelerates and globalization either accelerates or retracts, these things are, significant. So this is a framing for the problem set that we need solutions for. And we argue, of course, that these brain challenges are not factored into the way we think about the economy. Policymakers, heads of state, senior ministers around the world really don't think about these things from a neuroscience and a brain perspective. They don't really prioritize them as highly as they should. And so it's led to underinvestment and underappreciation. So we're obviously here to change that today, and all of you are a part of this. And we have a wonderful global coalition of people that are helping us in
Harris,
this regard.
your audio went out.
Okay, we'll get it back. He said the audio went out. Yeah. Do you want me to use this for? Should I use this too? Theo, is this working now?
Yes, you're back.
What's that? Just the audio. Yeah, Theo, is it back?
Yes, we're back.
Okay, brilliant. All right. So moving on. So the solution, thanks Theo for pointing that out. The solution that we've developed is brain capital. Brain capital is our theory of change. It's a platform for change. It's a framework. It is spacious, as a colleague put it. Brain capital is something that we're pioneering over the last couple of years. And we published initially 2 years ago in Molecular Psychiatry, which is a sort of world-leading neuroscience journal, and we evolve it from here. Brain capital, in simple terms, is brain health and brain skills in the brain economy. That's a simple algorithm. Brain health is a term that encompasses mental health issues like depression, ADHD, and brain health also incorporates neurological challenges, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease. And so brain health is this sort of catch term, and brain health is about not just deficits, problems that you have, but also strengths that you have as well. And brain skills are skills which are paramount to the modern economy, modern society, modern just getting around day to day, things like resilience, adaptability, creativity as well. And the brain economy is this concept of a knowledge economy with more neuroscience infused into it. We know that in the brain economy, innovation is very important. Productivity is important, creativity is important. We know that long COVID is a big problem for many countries around the world in the current economy, which hampers people's ability to think and be creative to some extent. And also in this brain economy, neuroscience discoveries are increasing. It's wonderful. Every day we see something in the newspaper about a new breakthrough in neuroscience. So this is just wonderful. So the brain economy is the canvas that we all live on. It has challenges, but it also has many benefits. And we also know that stigma rates are falling. You know, many people now are talking about brain challenges, brain health issues, particularly during COVID. So this is a nice way of framing brain capital across the lifespan. We all sit here to some extent on the spectrum across the lifespan, or we have family members that are somewhere on it, friends, etc. Or if we're clinicians or scientists, we all engage somewhere across this spectrum. There are positive influences in blue that you can see and negative influences in red. So this is just a way of framing that we're interested in things across the lifespan. Creativity, I think, is something that we'll talk about probably across the lifespan. And how my creativity during medical school, we were talking about before, went down as I was going through a very linear process and came up after I left medical school. Anyway, so the question for everyone is, what can you do to improve your own brain capital, to do more of the blue stuff, like exercise, healthy eating, and to reduce the red stuff that makes your brain capital go down, like smoking or excessive alcohol consumption. So it's a kind of a personal challenge for all of us to navigate this and tune our brains. Human capital, this is something that Rim will probably talk about in more detail, and the economists in the room are much better placed than I am to talk about this, but it's important to recognize that brain capital doesn't usurp human capital. It's really synergistic and it's additive as well. We know that human capital, when it thinks about skills, is thinking about years of education or degrees, which is a relatively crude concept. And so in brain capital, we're really trying to drill down deeper into the brain stuff, you know, mental health conditions, neurological conditions, and brain skills. And today, I think, is a great example of diving really deep into creativity, which human capital doesn't do that. So this is a frontier that we're on today, which is great. We published this grand strategy in this paper, seminal paper in molecular psychiatry, where we outlined a global vision. And we outlined a dashboard that is necessary to quantify and track brain capital. And Rim is the co-chair of the Brain Capital Dashboard Working Group, along with Andrew Nevin, who's on the call as well. And Rim launched the dashboard a couple of days ago in Brussels at a Center for European Policy Studies event. So this is really the driver, the main driver of what we're doing with the Brain Capital Alliance is the dashboard. It's, you know, nothing will happen without measuring and tracking. So the dashboard is critical. And we think about brain capital in all policies, not just in the context of the health sector, but in the context of every sector, every policy sector. I think if we do that forensically, thinking through brain capital in all policies, we can unlock previously unthought about innovations for policy, public policy. And then, of course, investing. If brain capital is in one context a economic asset, which we are driving towards, then we can invest in it. We can think about venture capital, private equity, bond mechanisms, different types of financial innovations, and very excited to even think if that is relevant today in the context of creativity, which is, you know, very interesting frontier to think about. We have, and I'll established at the end of this molecular psychiatry paper that we published, we were very fortunate, thanks to the help of William Hines at the OECD that runs the New Approaches to Economic Challenges Unit. We created this neuroscience-inspired policy initiative. We've been running this for the last 18 months. It was launched by Admiral Bill McRaven, who was a former four-star admiral, head of US Special Operations Command, led the Bin Laden raid, big advocate for brain performance in the context of society. And since we launched here, we've been, you know, profiled in many different areas, including twice brain capital has been presented to the US Congress. So it's kind of surreal to think that 2 years ago, we started thinking about brain capital and what it could mean. We published a paper, we're at the OECD now, and here we are today in Barcelona. So it's very meaningful for all of us, and particularly for me. We have other marquee projects to mention that here on the bottom right-hand side with the Global Brain Health Institute I was mentioning to Tarsos before, we have the first brain capital course in the world that's been launched with fellows from all around the world, high, middle, and low-income countries. And we have another course on the bottom left that's being presented in Argentina in a few months, funded by the Inter-American Development Bank. So really exciting projects. And Pawal Swoboda will talk more about the European Brain Initiative and activities in Europe, which was recently culminated in the Center for European Policy Studies event in Brussels, as I mentioned. Michael Freeman will talk a little bit about the brain of an entrepreneur, which obviously very relevant today to creativity. And Tarsos, again, this is a paper that we published recently, recognizing that creative capital is important. Creative capital is a new way of thinking about capital. And what can we do relevant to society, to economics policy, to unlock more creativity and entrepreneurship? How do we help entrepreneurs? Michael Freeman is an expert in this, professor at UCSF in San Francisco, and we'll talk more later. So just to give a little preview, to mention that in the context of these brain health issues, we know that diagnosis is subjective based on interviews. It's really not adequate. We can talk more about that if anyone wants to talk more. Treatment is often trial and error. It's kind of like throwing a dart at a target to see if things will work, particularly with like depression drugs. It's trial and error approach. But now, of course, we have all these frontier technologies that you can see here. We all know about, we hear about them on the news. So there's this big, that's what Tarsos and I were talking about this before, there's this big unmet need of all these diagnostic challenges, treatment challenges, and then there's all these technologies. And we need entrepreneurs and creative people to build products and services to help people that are in need. So this is a big part of our interest as well. We've published a little bit on the concept of brain capital investing, as I mentioned before, around this concept of brain capital as an asset. Plenty of that we've been publishing a lot. So if anyone's interested, we can send you more when you want to read more. There's a new investment fund that is getting off the ground now in France, a collaboration between New Fund Capital and Fondamental Foundation, Marion Leboyer and Francois Veron. This is the world's first venture capital fund focused on brain capital. So it's again, very staggering that given the colleagues that we have around the world, the gravity of brain capital, that a venture capital fund has been established. So this is exciting and can tell anyone more that's interested. Healthy brain bonds are something that we can talk about later. It's a state-backed bond mechanism to fund more neuroscience research, products and services, etc. Really, the contention of this slide is to say that we could unlock other funding mechanisms, not just government grants, to support better understanding the brain, understanding brain creativity, and understanding, how Alzheimer's occurs, etc. And there is two initiatives here, both from the US. CIRM is California Stem Cell Agency, has raised $6 billion of state-backed bonds, and CPRIT, Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas, has also raised $6 billion of bond capital for cancer research, and they've demonstrated a more than 5-to-1 ROI. So can we do this for neuroscience? Can we do this in Spain? Can we do this somewhere in Europe? Is the question, because it's just a way of generating more activity for neuroscience. We know that neuroscience, and Pawal Swoboda can talk much more about this, that neuroscience is underinvested in. The human brain is underinvested in the science and discoveries. So this is just one other way of thinking about unlocking more capital. And point here is to say that brain capital doesn't obviously just think about clinical issues, but also education, tech. How can we help kids get educated better, even adults get educated better all throughout their lifespan, and workforce tech. All of these things there's a lot of neuroscience that's coming to the fore. And Tarsos, again, I think can probably talk more about this as a entrepreneurship expert. This is what we're trying to generate and get excitement around with brain capital, because it really touches everyone. If it's not just clinical issues, but also education workforce, it's really everyone. The Alliance we launched here in Europe in the last few events, as has been mentioned. The plan is very ambitious, as we've basically now moving from the OECD only to now multi-organizational platform, where this is a really controlled launch of the Alliance that we're doing. So it's not a full launch controlled, and we plan to try to boost global brain capital by 25% in the next 20 years or so. So that really steels our minds to thinking about, we have big things to do, and arguably, all of you can be involved in this, and we'd love for you to be involved. If we don't take this kind of radical action, where are we going to be in 20 years' time? If we think about all of these different things that are impacting our brains, I think it's really, existential, we could argue. This is our website, which was just up last week. And then we have a new Twitter handle for anyone that wants to tweet about the Brain Capital Alliance. And final point here is to say that Rim and I and colleagues have been thinking about the living labs in the context of brain capital, innovation-driven organizations that facilitate and foster innovation between stakeholders to develop ecosystems to test and iterate and retest and validate solutions for brain capital. This is obviously, living labs are very popular in Europe. So we want to think about applying them to brain capital. And could we do it in Paris for youth mental health? Could we do it in Catalonia for creativity? Let's challenge ourselves and think about tangible living lab concepts. They could be at a family scale level, if we're influencing families, community levels, hospital level, business level, region level, state level, country level, continental level. I think that this is kind of what we're ready for. As you can see with brain capital, we've gone from like 80,000 feet theory. Now we're getting down further and further into action. And these living labs, we want to establish them in different parts of the world and really start to get granular with brain capital. These are the launch events that were mentioned. The event on the left was launched by Clément Beaune, who's the French Minister for External Affairs or European Affairs. We're very delighted that he would come and support us. And then the event at CEPS the other day, which included speakers from WHO, European Commission, etc. So we're off to a great start. Final point is to say all roads lead to the brain, including creativity. It's kind of corny, but I thought it was a very simple take-home message. Interesting, just when you think about this stuff, that it does all lead to the brain. So we need to continue to do the kind of work we're doing today to understand better. We have a long way to go, of course. We understand more about the surface of the moon than we do the brain. So we've got our work cut out for us. So thank you very much. I hope that this is helpful context for the rest of the day, and look forward to discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Harris. I think this gives an introduction on the Brain Capital Initiative already. And now I would like to present the initiative that we have been developing now for 1.5 years, which is a dashboard, and my colleague Sarah will go into the details of it. So please, my presentation. Okay, so the Brain Capital Dashboard, as Harris mentioned to all of you, we started this almost 1.5 years ago, working with a multidisciplinary team of psychiatrists, neuroscientists, economists, business people, and policy experts, trying really to think together on how really we could define the brain capital and go beyond the human capital, which is already functioning and a measure that it has been existing for many years, and trying really to go beyond it, probably adapt it, or go beyond the aspects of economics and try to link with neuroscience and psychiatry. So really having this multitude of discipline, trying to measure a concept which is very important nowadays. So the working group has been working for a year and a few months, and then we had many meetings and discussions to try really to align our understanding about brain capital. And at the end, we managed to have this definition that Harris mentioned to all of you. We have a policy paper coming out soon as we finalize all these meetings and try really to move the concept forward and try to apply it over time. And then we have the dashboard to measure the concept of brain capital. And then we can share with you some further steps. So the starting point, as was mentioned before, is the OECD neuroscience-inspired policy initiative. So really the starting point is neuroscience. And trying really to link with economic principles and go beyond it to really touch the main aspect of the brain capital, which are the two components that we have been debating at the end, the two pillars, brain health and brain skills, and trying really to put together all this multidisciplinary group of people who have been quite active along the process. And some of them are also part of the online that we don't see now, but they are really very much active into the co-construction. We have constructed all this concept together, and we will continue, because what we will present to you today is really the preliminary draft, which in fact, at the beginning we started to, as all economists, we like to construct indexes. And then in that sense, we prefer to start with the dashboard, because constructing an index may become a bit complicated, particularly when we don't have a common understanding of what we're talking about. And our approach was really to have a common understanding at a global level, at a national level, to allow really to understand the magnitude of the problem and really have policy action to act on it, and also to invest, if possible, on it from a public and private sector perspective. So in reality, what we have looked at as brain capital is a productive and complex capital stock, like any capital stock in the economy, which in fact accumulates over the life cycle. So it means that it can improve and it can deteriorate depending on the actions we are taking. So as I mentioned, it goes beyond human capital. Human capital is a concept which does not really take stock of the neuroscience and psychiatry or psychology advances. And I think this also gives another push into really a better understanding of how our brain functions. Now, the dashboard, it allows really to create general awareness of the problems. What are the problems within brain capital or brain health and brain skills, the way we defined it, and also to really try to have better understanding from all different stakeholders. And this is also important to really touch the private sector, the public sector, the NGOs, the academia, the doctors, and everybody who is really interested into this, but also the citizens. I think we need to understand that with the COVID-19, with all the, what I call the extreme shocks that we've been going through, brain has been in a way put at a high risk. And I think that we should better understand what it means for our life, well-being, and also overall happiness. And we need to go beyond a growth perspective, which really, in a way, dehumanizes our societies. So that is why nowadays in economics, we are moving into what I call beyond growth paradigm, which are much more human and are much more linked to what we are. Now, also, the dashboard will allow us to build informed policies. I think we need to better understand the magnitude of the problem and then try to design the right policies to tackle the problems and also to foster good practices as well and good possibilities. And these are all linked to enhance the brain capital formation development. So it means that if we're talking about capital, it means that we can enhance this capital, not from a financial standpoint. It could be later on if we can finalize, put a value on it. But in reality, as brain capital could really enhance our economic development from a point of view also of neuroscience advancement. And this is what we are trying to tackle. So as you see here, we managed to get this understanding of brain capital, health dimension, and the skills dimension, as was mentioned before. Obviously, we're talking about capital, so we want to empower it, or if we don't do nothing, or we don't really ensure that we are managing the impediments and tackling the problems or the challenges, then there will be a brain capital deterioration. With the factors, for example, of stress, which are, for example, the external shocks that we have been going through via COVID or via war in Ukraine or via other stressors, I think brain capital could be deteriorating without even knowing it from a health perspective, but also from skills perspective. And this is not known. The problem is when we don't know, it doesn't mean it does not exist. It's because we are unable to measure it. And this is the idea here, is to try to measure a complex thing, which is brain capital, but at least we have a reference point on which we can start with, and then try to have the policy actions needed for tackling the issue. And then obviously you have businesses, individuals, and policies that are all interacting and trying really to work toward the same objective. Now, the dashboard here, it is launched. I look at Sarah, I think still now with the password. We will share with you the password to give your feedback. But the idea here is to, of course, exploring how we're going to present it. It has to be friendly to users, but also define the right indicators. I think with colleagues like Shekhar, like Andrew, like Connell, Carol, who are connected with us today, with Harris, we had a long discussions about which indicators. There are hundreds of indicators that we can use, but we cannot just pull them all in one thing. So we need to have the right ones, the key indicators that allow us really to have a view on where we're going from now. And then obviously we have much more data than what we will show. I think Sarah is managing a huge amount of data. What we are also interested in real-time data. We cannot have real-time data, so we are obliged in a way to have data from public sources. These are the public sources. We have World Development Indicators, Gallup, Global World Poll, UNESCO, UNICEF, OECD, and others. But what is really the interesting part is to have data real. And I turn to my colleague, Pavel, who can also help in that sense, because real-time data needs much more investment in the infrastructure. And then with that, we could use it for policy decision-making at a certain level. Of course, not all countries have the capabilities to have these infrastructures, but then countries that have the capabilities and have research and development, like for example, at EU level or US or Australia and others, we can move this research and to another frontier that would be impactful for the societies overall. Now, this is a dashboard, the pillars on dimension. To reach this, it took us a lot of work and then a lot of discussions, because of course, if we would be only economists, this maybe will take us probably a couple of days of work. But then when it is different disciplines and everybody sees the concept from different perspectives, we needed to align our understanding. And again, as an academic, aligning understanding, it's extremely important with other disciplines. And I look at you, Harris, I think I learned a lot as an economist from you and from other colleagues who are in other disciplines. And it gives really a great understanding now of when I talk about brain health, I understand what I'm talking about before, maybe so just an indicator from an economic perspective. Now, brain skills, as you can see here, these are the cognitive skills, non-cognitive skills, mental flourishing, mental resilience. Creativity goes there, but the problem of creativity is we could not measure it because we didn't have any indicators for it. And I turn to Theo, he can give me much more information on this. But that is why creativity is a very interesting concept that can, in fact, in my view, could be in between brain skills and brain health. So probably this is something that needs to be thought of. Now, the brain health, obviously, absence of disorders, health brain functioning, childhood, adolescence related issues, prenatal related issues, aging, and so on, and how healthy brains are functioning. These are all indicators that we can find, obviously not at the same level of granularity or at, completion for all countries. For example, in Europe, maybe we can find this data, or US or Canada, but not for Africa or for Asia. Eventually, we won't find this data. This could be probably we could develop further surveys via the WHO, which were present with us in Brussels, and then launch these large surveys with Gallup to better understand the magnitude of the brain health issues in other countries beyond the countries that we can access data for. Now we have this pillar zero, which I call it still prerequisites. I don't want to call it pillar zero, but we can debate that. These are the brain capital drivers, which are really linked to the level of digitalization in countries, health services, natural environment, research and development, social capital, and perceptions. These are all drivers that could impact in a certain way brain capital, the way we defined it, brain health and brain skills. So these are some of the indicators. I'm not going to go through those because I give Sarah the floor to show you the interactive dashboard. But this is some type of indicators that you can see on screen. Brain health dimension, for example, and the brain skills dimension that we can, in fact, measure for many countries globally, which is quite interesting. So further research, we are still working on the indicators and the sub-dimensions with the group. And this is really a work in progress, and we need to continue all together feeding into it. And this is why we had this first call it series of meetings to first launch the concept, which is a completely new concept, but then at the same time see who are interested to continue the work with us and share with us data to be able to really feed into the dashboard. Now, continuing monitoring. Of course, with this data, these are annual data. Sometimes we can access data up to 2021, but then we need data that will allow us to understand the future as well, you know, to be able to do some forecasting about the situation. So then we can invest to prevent the problems to happen or to enhance this brain capital going forward with some targets, and then reaching those targets via some actions and policies. So these are the next step, but we still need the data for the reference model, the reference scenario that we want to develop. And then obviously exploring some funding, research funding for data collection projects and research projects to better understand, for example, the interaction between brain capital, well-being, resilience, beyond growth, labor market, future of work, and all of this, and entrepreneurship. And I think these are all aspects on which we can enhance the research on it from an economic standpoint. And all of this to say to you, we are in the beginning of the journey. We have a lot waiting for us if we want to really take this to another step. And here I give straight the floor to Sarah. Sarah was working with me on this online for 2 years. She was in Barcelona actually, and now in Italy. So look.
Thank you. Can I have also? Thank you. Hope you can hear me well. If you can please share my presentation. Thank you. So I want to start really thank you all for being here. I'm very happy to be here actually, and to see Haris at least in person, one of the members of this working group that has been working for 1 year, some months now, trying to first getting to a definition of this new concept of brain capital, and then, as I will show you now, to define definition and try to also find the proper indicators in order to have the way of monitoring this concept. And that is something that hopefully it will lead also us to the construction of an index later on that could help really governments in order to better shape policies. So I will start with a quick overview of how to assess the platform. Indeed, the platform you can have access through this website that you see on the screen. Then we can later on share it maybe with you all via email in order to be easier for you to access. And you can find it on the top on the website page, Brain Capital Dashboard, and you will be able to access through the password EMEA BCI 2022. This is a very short video. Let you jump into this very first rough version of the dashboard as we have thought about it. As for now, it was quite complicated because the concept itself is a multidisciplinary concept. It involves a lot of efforts in order to try to have first a definition of what we want to measure, and then, as many of you I think know, the difficulties of find the proper data in order to monitoring the concept and also update actually data, monitoring the issue, and equal data for all the countries in the world. So we are adding complexity over complexity here. So going through the platform step by step, the beginning of the platform, you can see that there is the link to the concept itself. There is a brief explanation of the concept that we define right now. Then you can go directly to the working group to see all the participants of the working group. And I take now the opportunity to thank you all, the working group participants that are online and are listening to us, because we were not able to arrive at this point without you. So it was really an exciting journey to arrive here. And I hope that this journey will continue. And of course, you can explore the dashboard now. So the dashboard starts, as I said, with the definition of the brain capital, which is also summarized in the figure that Rim showed before. So really, we think that the key final dimension for defining brain capital are health and the skills, and of course that this could be enhanced or could deteriorate, and this depends on which kind of policy are implemented, and also the individual behavior, as also the behavior of enterprises and businesses. So it's really a multidisciplinary but also multi-dimension concept, so, and involving different stakeholders. So here you can find the name of all the participants to this working group. The working group was set up, as Rim already said before, and more than 1 year ago. And we went through many meetings online trying to arrive at this point, having this first dashboard that I'm presenting today. So as already said before, we have these two pillars plus the drivers, let's say. Of course, it's a work in progress. So we are going to improve the layout, improve the usability, of course, on the website. That's why we are providing you a password, since we are not now sharing it publicly, but we prefer to keep it like protected by a password in order to continue to improve it before they make it public, but it's still available for you to take a look, and we will be very grateful for having your feedback on whatever pillars, distribution of indicators, defining new indicators, whatever, because we are still here working as a group in order to make out the best that we can out of it. And pillar of drivers. We have discussed a lot about the fact that, as I mentioned before, to enhance brain capital, we need some drivers, and that there could be also elements that can affect negatively the possibility for brain capital to develop. And so we are trying here to find the proper indicators in order to have a monitoring of these drivers. And this would be key in order to try also to make governments understanding which are the policies that can help enhancing or that without making this policy deteriorating the brain capital of the society. So it's quite key, and we go from digitalization, services provided, but also the environment, the natural environment, the perception of people, the social connection, and the research and development. Here I will show you some key indicators that we have started to put in the first dashboard. We are still in the process of building this big database actually, and we started from publicly available data from the sources that already mentioned Rim before. Of course, as you can see already from the beginning, from the first indicators, there is a huge problem of inequality of access of data. And of course, it's difficult to find data for all the countries in the world. And this is something that we want to also to stress with this platform. We have also have services. For example, we find the presence of a plan or a strategy for child or adolescent mental health, and the proportion of people with mental health conditions receiving social support. Then for natural environment, we have indicators such as this. So the mortality rate, which is linked to air pollution, age standardized per 100,000 population. Then we have for perception, the percentage of people think that mental health is illness or like any other, and this is particularly important if you think about the way mental illness is perceived, as is defined around the world as crucial in order to make the proper and equal implementing policy in order to help this mental illness to be tackled effectively from the public point of view. Then we have for research and development a classic indicator like the gross domestic research and development expenditure. And then we go through the pillar 1 on brain health. Of course, is the more classical one. Let's say if we think about brain capital, I mean, from ignorant perspective, when I approached for the first time the concept, the first things I was thinking about was those related actually to the brain health itself. So the absence of disorder, and you can see healthy brain functioning, aging related issue, childhood adolescent related issue, prenatal related issue. Here it was key during all our discussion in the group to really highlight the importance of defining the problems related to health, brain health at the different stages, since we are looking at the at all the stages of life, actually. So from the childhood through to the older age. And also what we are trying to develop better is to positive part of this dimension. So to look at what are the things that improve actually the positive development of the brain health. As for now, we have as absence of disorder, suicide mortality rate, and prevalence of depressive disorder. And for aging related issues, we have the trait from Alzheimer's and other dementia. And this is quite worrisome if you look at the graph on the right side, and you see that for all the region in the world, from the low and to the high income countries, the trend is increasing. And since we are also talking about an aging society, this is particularly worrisome and needs more debate. Then for childhood adolescents, we have prevalence of stunting and mortality rate under 5 age. For prenatal, we have mortality rate under 5. And then for pillar 2, brain skills, is a little bit the trickiest pillar, since we are really dealing with something that is unusual to find in research, in also international organization providing data. So it's very difficult to tackle this dimension, but we are very excited to do it. And I think it's also the more exciteful dimension to tackle, because it requires a lot of research, which is really new. And for our site, from the perspective of our researchers, is always exciting. And I'm particularly happy to be here also to discuss in particular these pillars, since we are talking, the focus of today is creativity, and the creativity falls completely under this pillar, particularly non-cognitive. And so we have, for example, for cognitive skill is quite, I mean, a little bit more easier to tackle it through indicators, because we have a lot of indicators about, for example, education, developing some classical indicators for understanding how well education is implemented and provided. But actually, I go through the last slides. We have some key points that we need to address, in particular for the dimension of social connections under the brain capital drivers. We would like to find out more indicators for measuring trust in the other people, and also relationship development, so having friends, having relatives close, and how people can really connect with the other people, which is a fundamental element for developing a good health for the brain. Then for the pillar of brain health, we are looking at feeling well-rested indicator and other indicators that are available from the Global World Poll, from large survey about really the perception about our health. And then for the dimension of brain skills, particularly for non-cognitive skills, we aim at finding indicators, or propose also, because we are here also to try to propose some new field of research in terms of research in general, but also research that could help finding new data available for measuring those kind of things. So creativity, design thinking, entrepreneurship, for a mental flourishing, which is a big concept under another big concept, we have happiness and hope, and there is quite a lot of literature now on this, but when you come to data, it's a different story, of course. And for brain skill, for mental health resilience, also locus of control and confidence. And here we have in the group, for example, Robinson, which has wrote a book on confidence. It's an exploited concept for neuroscientists and psychiatrists, that for economists was a little bit new, and we are trying to better understand this together with the group and find new way to measure it. So as for further step, Rim already mentioned most of all. I want just to add and highlight the fact that we are still on the process of trying to enlarge this database that we are building, and so we are particularly seeking for suggestion and for advices on it, and we will explore, of course, new sources for both the data and overall literature in order to improve even more the platform itself, but also the idea behind the platform, of course, because we are still working as a working group. And with this, I finish, I think. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. I think this gives you all an idea on the work in progress. I give straight the floor to Theo to define the scope of creativity. Theo, to you.
Hey, thank you, Rem, and thanks, Harris and Sarah. That was wonderful. We're running a little bit behind, so we'll try to catch up some ground here, but we do want to make sure that we are covering the concept of creativity, because a lot of the times people think they understand what it actually is, and the media is complicit in that, because of the media's kind of reductionist approach to reporting on creativity. And so what SETA and I hope to do is complicate that narrative and expand the application of it. There's the neuroscience piece of it, that's the individual, but then there's also creativity as a social and cultural manifestation. And so we want to address a little bit of that both today. So first I'm going to introduce my colleague and co-curator of the Cross-Atlantic Creativity Congress in Salzburg back in April, SETA Roeder. I'll start with a short video of the organization that she has founded, the Sonophilia Foundation, that is doing amazing work throughout Europe and the world, really, around creativity. So SETA, I'll start the video and then turn it over to you.
Creativity. It is what's behind all human progress and innovation, and it is what we need more of to build a better and prosperous future for everyone. Creativity is magical, but it is not magic. It is an inherent resource in every human being. But not everyone has the access to knowledge, education, and support to develop their creative confidence. Therefore, to many people, a creative life remains a distant dream. But imagine a world where more people would have the creative confidence to ask questions, invent options, and contribute to solving the big problems of humanity. Imagine a world where creativity would not be seen as a privilege, but as the essence of what makes us human. This dream is why we at the Sonophilia Foundation take action to foster creativity in education, business, and life. We work with scientists who look into creativity beyond buzzwords and myths. Together, we are making creativity more tangible. By enabling access to scientific insights and tools, we are democratizing creativity to help everyone develop a creative confidence to shape a better life for themselves and their communities. Because we believe that no one is too small to make a difference, and because your creativity matters.
Okay, SETA, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much for the invite, and hello everyone. I'm really very, very happy to share some of the work we're doing at the Sonophilia Foundation. My background is in the arts. I was cultivated as a concert pianist. I studied music here in Salzburg at the Mozarteum, and then I came to realize that there is a meta topic that we in the arts take as a given, but that is something that's actually badly needed also outside of arts, you know, even if you're a mathematician, physician, a doctor. And that connecting topic of arts and the outside world is creativity. So that's why we decided to start the Sonophilia Foundation, which is a German nonprofit organization. We have a beautiful circle of benefactors, around 55 people from all around the world who contribute their time and their resources to fund creativity research within the neurosciences realm. And we also organize international events such as the Cross-Atlantic Creativity Congress, which just took place the first time in Salzburg this April. We also bring out books. The conference proceedings are following up in September, around September. So we already published another book, which is called Creativity Matters. And behind all of this work, there is this notion that we need to restart thinking what creativity means in the society. And one question probably that connects our different organizations with each other is the question, you know, why do we have a brain? There are species in the world that have no brain, but they still have a life, you know, like the sea stars and oysters. And I wasn't aware that this question of, you know, why do we have a brain is actually a legitimate scientific question. which has been asked by different scientists, also at the Stanford University, the David Eagleman research group, for instance. And they have come up with a very interesting answer, looking at this little funny animal called C-squared, because that animal comes to Earth. I mean, it starts living with a brain and searches and searches and searches. And the moment it finds the perfect place to kind of settle, the first action is it eats its own brain. So according to this development, you know, the neuroscientists seem to think that primarily we need a brain to move. But since we humans don't tend to eat our own brains, probably we also need the brain to be moved, because we're, you know, always curious. We're always in the search. We're always kind of trying to find the better version. And 98% of our genetic composition is identical with those of the apes. But the rest, the 2%, you know, whatever is important, meaningful, that makes the difference, that moves us to tears, that kind of does everything with our human progress, comes from our creativity. And I believe deeply that we're not doing any good job at all in incorporating this creative potential that is around us into innovation processes at all. And to that end, we started a very interesting project. We also do some technology-enabled projects, which is the Constellopedia. If I might ask Theo to show you the Constellopedia. We recently started this project with a call for submissions, technology project submissions, and we awarded $60,000. And this is the winning project. So Constellopedia is a platform where everybody can contribute to adding and solving problems. So it is the biggest map of all the world problems in relation with each other. And while we were doing this project, we realized that, creativity starts not in the problem solving, but it starts with the problem finding. And one of the big issues we have is we do not allow different problems to coexist with slightly different definitions at the same time. So Constellopedia is a platform where you have a quantum existence of definitions of problems at the same time. And what we are able to do in the second stage is we can put these problems into relation to each other and form teams to tackle these issues. And once they start tackling the issues, we can put blockchain-enabled wallets, so you can actually fund, as a normal human being, you can contribute to the solutions of these problems by linking them, by funding them, by adding different problems to this map. And the indication of this is, of course, going to be if you solve one problem, you will be able to see the clusters and how it relates to different problems. So it's a real-time progress report, if you will, of humanity's creativity and innovation. So to that end, I would like to say thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to connecting later also. Thank you.